Look at this. We have our top 3 riders on the grid for this 20-lap Grand Prix of America. Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia,
changing bikes.
Alex Marquez. Well, it's a 100-metre Olympic sprint this now, isn't it? As Marc Marquez, a 7 times MotoGP winner here. Bikes are being pulled off the grid, left, right and centre.
Alex
Look
Marquez
at this.
too.
Miller, Mia, Fermin Aldeguer has jumped off the grid. So has Pedro Acosta. There's Maverick Vinales, 2024 Koto winner. Marc Marquez then has been able to switch onto his slick shod bike. The Marquez brothers and Fabio Di Gianantonio, they intended to start this race on Michelin's rain tyres. Have you ever seen anything quite like this?
Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Joan Mir, who were all inside the top 8 positions on the grid. The riders are now asking, look, this is...
Maverick Vinales doesn't have a bike. Maverick Vinales is completely bikeless on the grid.
Yeah, red flag.
Yeah, red flag. Wow, that has just been about as dramatic as you can get. So he comes to the front of the grid there, Marquez. Aggressive on the front end there, getting the whole shot device engaged. So it looks like, in fact, he's having a problem here, isn't he, Marc Marquez? Has he done it this time around?
Soon find out. Oh, hands waving now. We've got more problems on the grid. Maverick Vinales, who had some problems earlier on, is now waving his hands. He's now going to have to get off the grid. Nightmare.
The Kota winner here 1 year ago. Well, he was the pole starter. He won the sprint and the Grand Prix. Not a welcome return to Austin, Texas.
Should we start the race?
For Maverick Vinales. So here we go then, it's take 2 in Texas. Lights out and we're racing in MotoGP here in Austin. Really good launch away from pole position by Marc Marquez. He runs the outside line. Pecco Bagnaia's made a great start as well from the back of the second row in 6, although he gets his nose chopped off by Di Gianantonio. Once again, it's the story of MotoGP 2025. It's 73 versus 93. Marc versus Alex Marquez.
But Pecco Bagnaia once again getting aggressive. Through on Frankie Morbidelli. He tried to repeat the move of yesterday, which he worked on Marc Marquez, this time on Alex Marquez into turn 3. Alex wise to it, he held on to second.
So Bagnaia made a pretty good start once again from the back of that second row. Not quite as good as the launch he made, the lightning launch yesterday in the sprint. There he is in 3rd place on the 63 bike. It's Marc then that leads from Alex as they drop down through this spectacular 4th gear turn 10. Lap 1 of 19 here. Johan Zarco has had an aggressive start. He's already up 3 places for LCR Honda. Pecco Bagnaia wasting precious little time to make a move through on Alex Marquez, although on the exit they go side by side, they rudge. Bagnaia just getting in a fraction too hot on the brakes, but a little bit wide, a little bit offline. Alex Marquez just cut the inside line. 73 back in second.
Marc Marquez not interested in the repeat of yesterday's sprint drama. He's clearing off at the front. Bagnaia through once again into second place. Jack Miller's attacking on the KTMs of Pedro Acosta and Brad Binder, as Miller now comes through into what I think is 5th place.
Yeah, Marc Marquez will be a second clear very, very quickly. Fabio Quartararo gets on the inside of Pedro Acosta. Nice move that by the Yamaha rider coming through the right-hander of turn 13. Remind you, El Diablo, Quartararo crashed on the sighting lap on the slick tyres on a very wet Kota surface. You have to say the track here does dry very, very quickly. The advantage is already a second. We're not even completed lap number 1 here in Austin, Texas.
KTM battle here. Acosta on Binder. Don't run into the back of Quartararo. Pedro, he very nearly did as he now comes through. That's the battle for 8th place between the 2 KTMs as Marc Marquez continues to blaze a trail at the front. Alex Marquez matching him so far on this second lap, but Marc Marquez has got the jump he wanted.
Pedro Acosta, we know what a missile the KTM is in a straight line, but just how good in straight line braking is Fabio Quartararo. He talked about this yesterday. He's in a little bit hot. Pedro Acosta also in hot. That's all down to the slipstream getting sucked into that heavy braking. Look at that. They're scrubbing off pretty much 300 kilometers an hour in less than 8 seconds. One of the most harshest braking zones on the Grand Prix calendar as Morbidelli and Miller go toe-to-toe. Now then, with a bit of slipstream here, what can Pecco Bagnaia do? Starts clicking through that single shift gearbox, and he's so razor sharp on the brakes into turn number 12. He is going to make it pull down to the apex, although he's a little bit wide. He will have the inside line though going into turn 13. So Bagnaia then does slot into second place.
position he's not been in so far this season, certainly not when he's seen a checkered flag waved at him. He was briefly up in the lead, of course, for the sprint yesterday, so this was the positions that we expected from pretty much the beginning of the season. The factory Ducati duo of Marquez and Bagnaia together at the front of the field. Can Pecco Bagnaia do what is, I guess, seemingly the unthinkable and the impossible on a MotoGP bike and try and chase down Marc Marquez at the front of a race in Cota? He's got now just Marc Marquez up ahead of him.
This is back with the battle of the Red Bull KTMs. At the moment, that is going the way of number 33, Binder. 7th place right now for the South African, who's closing in on his former factory KTM teammate Jack Miller, who's doing an excellent job on the Pramac Yamaha. He is the top non-Ducati right now, Miller, in that 6th place.
Yeah, you've got to say he's doing a fine job at the moment, Miller, given that Quartararo on the other M1, who's been up there towards the sharp end in this race, has plummeted backwards down the order. Jack Miller more than holding his own and doing a personal best last round on a 2:03.7. Acosta, though, did a 2:03.0 to close in quite quickly on the back of his teammate Binder, as Marc Marquez sets another fastest lap of the race at 2:02.4. Personal best for each of the top 3, but Marc Marquez has got a quarter of a second a lap over his teammate right now.
Bagnaia just in a little bit more of a comfort zone, back to Alex in 3rd. A 2:02.6.
Acosta's gone down.
Pedro Acosta has crashed out of 8th place. So Pedro Acosta then dumps it on the outside of the first corner.
Second Grand Prix out of 3 now that Pecco Bagnaia has crashed in. He did remount to finish in Thailand. Looks like he's going to try and do the same here, but that will have essentially dropped him out of the points. Up into turn 1 as the battle was going on behind him between Aldeguer and Zarco. Acosta the front end washing away into turn 1. He's trying to force that KTM to fit, and at the moment the KTM won't fit.
That's what happens when you're trying to ride on the ragged edge, trying to ride over the limit of a motorcycle's capabilities. It seems at the moment Pedro Acosta is a couple of steps ahead of the KTM underneath him.
Bagnaia now much closer to Marquez's pace as Marquez dropped down to a mid 2:02. The lead 2.2 seconds, but Bagnaia, as you mentioned, is just ever so slightly creeping away from Alex Marquez in 3rd.
Yeah, at the moment, Bagnaia does have Alex's measure, it seems. That gap has crept up to nearly 0.8 of a second. Oh no, Marc Marquez has crashed! Marc Marquez has crashed out of the lead here in Austin, Texas. That is the 3rd time here in Cota that Marc Marquez, 2019, 2024 and now 2025, Marc Marquez sees his unbeaten, undefeated record go in a blur here. Marc Marquez drops the ball here in Cota. Can you believe it? He was cruising 2.2 seconds clear as he tipped into turn 4 on lap number 9, and Marc Marquez has blown it.
Pecco Bagnaia leads the Grand Prix of the Americas improbably. Here we go then into turns 3 and right through 4.
Curbs.
And the front end washes away. There'll be still some water on those curbs. So lucky that he was 2 seconds up the road because he came back across the racetrack. And Pecco Bagnaia, well, what goes around comes around for him. Remember, Bagnaia crashed out of the lead here 2 years ago. This time the gift lands into his hands.
Was he just getting a little bit greedy there on the inside curve and on that white line? Marc Marquez then, well, he was the major talking point before the Grand Prix. After he walked off the grid seconds before the start of the initial start, he's going to be the major talking point now post-Grand Prix for another reason as well, because as we mentioned, he's a 7-time winner here in Cota, but coming back to haunt him once again for the 3rd time. He crashes out of the lead. The 93 has remounted. I don't think he's got a right foot peg, so surely he's going to have to pit here. You can just see there.
Yeah, he's running in 18th place at the moment, is Marc Marquez. Even without a foot peg, I'm sure he could still catch up and score points from there. So quick he is around this place. But it's Pecco Bagnaia now, after an awful start to 2025 by his super high standards. All of a sudden, the 63 is staring at a 30th MotoGP victory. He leads Alex Marquez by 1.3 seconds.
I'm afraid to say it's another Honda crash for Joan Mir. He's been down the road twice already this weekend at turn 15, including in the sprint yesterday. And once again, another top 10 challenge slips through the fingers of poor old Joan Mir. This time around he goes down at turn 12.
I wonder whether he was also on the curb there on the outside as he was having that battle down into the braking zone of 12. So Joan Mir then, unfortunately for him, a weekend that's shown plenty of potential, but he leaves Austin, Texas with no points. Bagnaia is still lapping in the 2:02s. Jorge Martin having a good look at the big screen. He's seen plenty, we've all seen plenty over the years. Have we ever seen a Grand Prix quite like this one? Well, I guess he's also thinking if we get a red flag, he might be able to stay out, but he is now finally right on cue.
There we go.
We finally called it.
I think I cursed him on Friday when I said he was a masterful performance so far.
Maybe that's what Marc Marquez was thinking. We're getting to the point now where a red flag isn't even going to save me, so I might as well pull in. No points, extraordinarily, this Sunday afternoon for Marc Marquez.
You know what, riding like that as well, you're going to be getting cramp in your leg. It's just almost impossible to ride. Wow, well, nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw this coming at all, did we? We thought he was a shoo-in. We thought he was nailed on for that 8th victory here in COTA. But out of the blue, out of absolutely nowhere, Marc Marquez has a premature ending to this Austin Grand Prix. For the 3rd time, he has crashed out the lead. This was the major moment here in Austin. Look at that on the inside curve. And just too slippery, just pushing too hard. Oh dear, oh, the tears are flying for some of the young 93 fans. Well, they've had plenty to smile about, haven't they, so far in 2025?
Well, this is why they don't race on paper. No such thing as a foregone conclusion at this level. Even Marc Marquez, the form he's in, has proven that mistakes can happen, that he is human. It looked like he was all set, wasn't it, to extend his unbeaten run this season. 3 pole positions, 3 sprint wins, but there will not be a 3rd Grand Prix win of 2025. Not today.
Well, some things never change, do they? Enea Bastianini, whether he's on a Ducati or a KTM in MotoGP, you better watch out towards the final laps of a MotoGP race, because he's got... Oh, Zarco's tucked the front on the LCR Honda. Johan Zarco then, who was starting to lose places. He'd been picked up by Aldeguer, Bezzecchi, and then by Bastianini, and maybe a little bit of frustration creeping in for the number 5, the beast on the inside into turn 12. Oh, that's unfortunate, isn't it, for Zarco? Looked like he might have actually just lost the rear as he picked up the throttle. Aldeguer's gone down. Well, they're dropping like flies, aren't they, late on here now in COTA? Oh, head in hands. There's his manager, former 125cc rider, former Moto 2 star Hector Falbel. So Fermin Aldeguer, who was on course for a sensational top 5. He's gone down at turn 15 and he's hobbling away from the scene of the crime.
Yeah, slow crash in turn 15. For him to be hobbling away, I fear he might have high-sided on the way out of turn 15. Such a shame, because he'd ridden so well. He'd just gone through on Jack Miller, and that was about as far up the field as he was going to get, because Morbidelli was 3 seconds up the road. Unfortunately, he does not get the result that his general weekend's performance deserves.
The gap between Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Giannantonio, well, that stayed pretty much put at 1 second. They both exchanged 2:02.9s on that last lap. It does look like Alex Marquez will cling on to 2nd place and decisively seize the lead in the MotoGP World Championship for the very first time.
Yeah, credit to Alex Marquez there. Sensed the danger and dropped back down into the 2:02s, and that should have nipped any Fabio Di Giannantonio hopes of 2nd place firmly in the bud. Morbidelli's in a lonely 4th from Jack Miller, who did take a 2nd down to Morbidelli on the last lap. But Gigi Dall'Igna there watching on. Well, he's going to get a factory Ducati victory on this Sunday afternoon in Austin, and Pecco Bagnaia has cut a desolate figure at times so far this season. He's had to sit silently and watch celebrations on the other side of the garage as Marc Marquez has won everything in sight so far in 2025. It's finally going to swing back around for the double world champion today.
Pecco has been there to pick up the pieces of Marc Marquez's huge error, having crashed out of the lead for the 3rd time here in Austin. He can relax now. This has been some response from Pecco Bagnaia, who has been under pressure. There's been talk of a crisis early on in 2025 for the former double MotoGP world champion. It's going to be a bright day for one of the Marquez brothers who's going to wrestle top spot in the World Championship. Fabio Di Giannantonio, after all of his injury struggles, all of his injury woes towards the back end of last season, the start of this season, he's going to make a return to the podium. But there are just 2 corners left now for Pecco Bagnaia to negotiate. Marc Marquez blew it here in Kota, but Pecco Bagnaia, he starts the counter-attack here in Kota as he takes a first victory of the season. Pecco Bagnaia is your winner in Austin 2025. Alex Marquez takes 20 super important points for the championship in second place, and he does depose Marc from the lead of the standings. Fabio Di Giannantonio does take a brilliant third place. Great weekend for Digia, 4th in the sprint, 3rd in the Grand Prix. That's successive third places for Valentino Rossi's Ducati squad.
What a blockbuster that was as Marc Marquez throws it all away, gifting Francesco Bagnaia his much-needed first win of the season, ahead of Alex Marquez and Fabio Di Giannantonio.